After watching the movie The Gorge, at first glance, everything is clear. During World War II, the anti-Hitler coalition tried to create a new biochemical weapon, but because of seismic activity, there was a leak, and the entire base turned into an exclusion zone. The toxin spill led to the mutation of all living organisms. The DNA of plants and insects joined the DNA of humans. All people living in the Gorge began to turn into monsters, and to contain further contamination was built outpost, the task of which is not to release mutants from the Gorge. Of course, even in this story has its pitfalls and involuntarily arise questions. Why the cab is not dispersed by the wind and he does not leave the territory of the Gorge. Why the main characters were not infected because they were in the center of the launching mine. Why some people died immediately and others mutated. The fog inside the Gorge is tricolored, red, blue, and yellow, and many other things that the movie didn't try to explain in any way. A huge part of the story was just left out. I think we need to fix that. So I think we should start with the history of the military laboratory. In 1944, after the fall of Germany, the anti-Hitler coalition, which included three superpowers, Great Britain, the USSR, and the United States, found in one of the laboratories of the Third Reich a new biochemical weapon. The German chemist Rader Herhard, known for creating the nerve agent Sarin Isoman by order of the Führer, was developing a completely new biochemical weapon. He was assisted by the best minds in Germany, and they succeeded in creating three mutagenic toxins based on nucleic acids. The red toxin contained human DNA, the yellow one contained insect DNA, and the purple-blue one used plant DNA. All three components individually did not produce the desired result, but if they were mixed together, a vapor formed that looked like a very thick fog. When a person came into contact with the substance on the fifth day, the mutation process began. Some people died and after death turned into plants. Others grew branches and looked like trees, but continued to function. At the same time, the person completely lost his consciousness. The monsters mimicked behavior, lacking the intelligence and habitual instincts of living organisms. The Hollow Men only remotely resembled humans, though sometimes they seemed to retain their humanity. But in fact, man had long since died. Only a shadow remained of him, which continued to exist in defiance of the laws of nature. Scientists have long studied the substance and its effect on living organisms. The first experiments showed that this fog did not rise above 300 meters. Its density did not allow it to rise higher, and the radius of defeat was 38 kilometers. After it dispersed, in this zone, 90% of living organisms died immediately on contact. The rest mutated. Over time, the gas weakened and could no longer kill a person, but the risk of turning into a monster remained the same. In the surviving secret documents of the coalition was able to learn only part of the information about the substance, as half of the documentation Germany managed to destroy. Therefore, in 1945, it was decided to continue testing. Great Britain, the Soviet Union, and the USA pooled their resources. They could not act separately from each other, since all three countries knew about the toxin. In the same year, a decree was signed to the coalition to begin the joint development of biochemical weapons. The countries had to find a place where, if the substance leaked, it would not be able to spread and create a cataclysm of planetary level. Therefore, it was necessary to find a gorge more than 300 meters deep. A suitable place was found on an island in Norway. The exact location is unfortunately not specified anywhere. Each country contributed almost equally to the project and to the construction of the military base inside the gorge. But the main part of the financing was taken by the USA. The Soviet Union provided the builders, and Great Britain had to create a fort post around the gorge. So all these structures, including 2 observation towers, were built before the disaster started. The thing is that the project was so secret that everyone who was on the base could not leave it, and for security purposes, there was a constant patrol around, who had no idea what was going on inside the gorge. In case of an escape attempt, the patrol would kill the deserter and any fugitive on the spot, and the defense protocol in case of a leak stated that all people who worked on the territory of the base could not leave the gorge, and they were doomed to a slow death. There was another important safety measure. All 3 enemy substances were not mixed together. 3 separate launching blocks were built. Each missile contained only 1 toxin, and to hit the conditional enemy, 3 missiles had to be fired simultaneously at the same place. In the rock of the gorge itself, the coalition built a bunker. It was where the laboratory was located and the development of the toxins took place. Most of the soldiers did not know what they were guarding, and all the work of the scientific staff was strictly classified. All participants in the project were given a box of cyanide in case of a leak. Everyone could use the poison and ease their fate. Unfortunately, on July 7th, 1946, there was an earthquake in the Gorge. All 3 launching blocks were damaged, which eventually led to such consequences. There was no evacuation, as you realize. The total military base strength was 9,000. Instead of a rescue mission, the coalition sent 3 battalions of 2,400 cavalrymen to clean up the Gorge. When they got down to the former military base, they saw that almost everyone had died and their bodies had turned into the likeness of trees. Those who mutated were not so many, but they behaved extremely aggressively. In the end, not a single soldier from the cavalry did not return. After that, the alliance of countries decided not to send any more expeditions deep into the Gorge, and for many years there was a patrol and eternal battle with those who tried to get out. Everything changed in 1986. The Gorge project left the Soviet Union. The country didn't want to waste any more of its resources, and in 1990, the United Kingdom followed suit. Since the United States had been the main sponsor in the past, and all the money for the construction was financed by this country, the Gorge came under their full control. That same year, they began building satellite defenses around the area, and in the center of the Gorge, the military installed a nuclear charge, codenamed Stray Dog. In case of detection, the protection protocol was automatically activated, and everything within a radius of 4 kilometers was destroyed by a nuclear explosion. It was in the early 90s that scientists began to descend into the Gorge again and take samples. But it was too dangerous, so in 2003, everything was put under the control of a private company called Dark Lake. This company was dealing with genetic upgrades and trying to create super soldiers, so when Levi and Drasa were hired, they were no longer working for the government of their countries, but for private contractors. With the overall story hopefully sorted out, I think it's time to move on to breaking down the movie. At the very beginning, we see that the private company Dark Lake recruits people with good military training, but with one very important addition. The candidate must have no connections, so that if he goes missing, none of his relatives or loved ones will be looking for him. Levi and Drasa are perfect candidates. No one needs them. After signing a 1-year contract, we see that Levi is taken to the place of deployment, but for some reason, it's still 38 kilometers to the target. Quite an odd detail. It's all security protocols. There are jammers in that radius, and all flying is forbidden, otherwise the air defense will go off, but it can be disabled, which we saw at the end of the movie. On top of that, the soldiers who are in the helicopter have no idea about the Gorge and what the purpose of the mission is. They are just following orders, so they don't need to see the outpost and the Gorge itself. After a year of guarding the area, each participant is killed, removing all unnecessary witnesses and to avoid accidentally finding a corpse, doing all this over 38 kilometers away. JD on his way back just couldn't meet the corpse of his predecessor. Second, during their acquaintance, Levi learned some scraps of history, in particular that 3 battalions of cavalry were once sent into the Gorge for a mop-up operation, but not a single man returned. At the head of that mission was Captain Bradford Shaw. He was the first caretaker of the East Tower and had been working at the outpost before the disaster began. Later we see him already as a Hollow Man, and he is in charge of his squad. At first glance, he seems to show signs of intelligence. He set a trap and kidnapped Drasa without trying to kill her immediately. His purpose is unclear, but again, it's just a shadow. There is no human in the monster. It mimics the behavior of that consciousness that has long since died. As you realize, the purpose of the sweep was meaningless. Just at that time, the coalition wanted to avoid leaking information. They couldn't risk it, so they decided to eliminate all the witnesses by giving orders to descend into the Gorge. All the soldiers were going to certain death. This gave time to create a new line of defense without using a large number of people. The defense is designed so that it is able to repel any attack without human participation, and people are needed only to replenish the arsenal, put new mines, adjust the equipment. The scene when the monster got to the top of the tower makes no sense at all. It is not originally in the script, but I think the author who decided to add it for the sake of tension in the movie. When Drasa and Levi establish communication, we see 2 references to other movies. Actor Miles Taylor starred in the 2014 movie Obsession, where he played the role of a mad drummer. Anya Taylor-Joy is known for her role as Beth from the miniseries The Queen's Move, where she was a chess prodigy. Ravine director Scott Derrickson is a big fan of the 2 projects, so he decided to add in some pass hashes, even though they weren't originally scripted either. Levi plays kitchen utensils as drums and uses drumsticks, which he used in the movie Obsession, and Adrasa had to play with wooden spoons because her specialty is chess. Plus, the part they play is taken from Bete's victory party over Borgoff from The Queen's Move. I really like the chemistry between the characters in the first act of the movie, but when Levi coincidentally falls into a ravine, the romance ends. Inside, we can notice how the areas are divided. You can clearly see the transitions. Where there is yellow mist, the trees have predator properties. In the purple and blue zone, the same trees imitated human bodies, which looks quite creepy. In the red zone, people have become like mycelium and resemble one big solid organism, and we are clearly shown in the picture all three bases with launch shafts. Steam of different colors, red, yellow, and purple-blue, comes out of each one. As I told you earlier, this was done for safety reasons, but no one took into account the natural factors. In the lab itself, while Levi is watching the video of the scientist, Drasa finds the biochemical weapon concentrates. You can notice 3 different colors here too, with the year and batch number on the containers. Some of the bottles are missing, as Dark Lake was able to take 3 of them for study in 2003. During this mission, they even managed to install a stationary computer from where all the information obtained was transmitted. The photo we see in the lab is the Yalta Conference of the Allied Powers, which took place on February 11, 1945. It depicts the 3 leaders of the anti-Hitler coalition, Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill. When Drasa and Levi got out of the gorge, both agreed that they would wait 5 days in order to realize whether they had contracted the toxin or not, and then they would already make one right decision. I don't know why, but they took one important detail out of the movie. Before each mission, all candidates were injected with antibodies along with sleeping pills. By then, the company had already developed an antitoxin. Drasa and Levi were perfectly safe. The biochemical weapon couldn't affect their bodies. Dark Lake didn't consider the substance a weapon. It had long since lost its value over time, but as a basis for human genetic enhancement, it's the best source. They need all the materials only for the sake of upgrading soldiers, and at the time of the movie, they have not yet managed to extract anything worthwhile from the properties of the substance. The Ravine was the most successful movie to debut on Apple TV, breaking the record of lone wolves and quick bullets. Not only did it surpass the previous leader, but it also attracted new viewers, increasing its viewership by 80% in its second weekend. Director Scott Derrickson was inspired by the games Silent Hill and Until Dawn. The bottom of the ravine, as well as some of the creatures visually, are largely inspired by the work of Polish artist Zdzisław Beksinski and the painting Annihilation. That movie has a very similar idea of turning people into trees. Actor Miles Taylor was immediately confirmed for the role of Levi, but originally for the role of Drasa was considered Mary Elizabeth Winstead. The director strongly liked her game in the movie Kate. The actress showed the highest level of choreography and fight scenes. After this movie, she was invited to the picture ballerina, but she refused as she signed a contract to shoot the picture of the roofs of the world. The second option was Anya Taylor-Joy. Yes, she did a great job with the role, but after seeing Kate's movie, I began to doubt the choice. Mary Winstead, to me, seems much more professional playing the fight scenes. The Lithuanian word Drasa is not a name, it means courage, so maybe it's just a nickname for the assassin. And what the movie's heroine's real name is, we never find out. You may notice that while aiming, both eyes of both Levi and Drasa are open. This is not a movie gaffe. Marksmen and markswomen never close one eye. They are trained to keep both eyes open while shooting. It is very difficult to give a genre to the movie as it has almost all elements of horror, drama, science fiction, thriller, and action. The movie is divided into 3 acts, and each act is unique in its own way. And what did you like about The Gorge? Share your opinion in the comments. The contract played into that reference, although she could have originally just played her part and not argued with the director. Anyway, I think the actors played very well, and I like the movie. I won't say it's perfect, but it's quite interesting. If you liked the video, then subscribe to the channel and give it a like.